On June 4th, 1942, high above the cold waters of the North Pacific, a single moment changed the future of air combat in World War II. A Japanese Zero fighter spiraled downward, smoke trailing behind it like a long ribbon. The pilot fought to stay alive as the plane dipped lower and lower, heading toward the lonely, windswept islands below. What happened next created a mystery that historians still talk about today. How did one crash in a remote place end up revealing the hidden weaknesses of Japan's most feared fighter plane? Why did a simple accident become one of the most valuable discoveries the United States made during the entire war? And how did a single pilot, young, skilled, and thousands of miles from home, play a part in a turning point he would never live to see? This is the story of the Akutan Zero, a plane that transformed American understanding of the aerial enemy they had feared since Pearl Harbor. But before the world knew the name Akutan Zero, it was simply the aircraft of a young pilot trying to complete a dangerous mission. The pilot was Tadayoshi Koga. He was born in 1922 in Japan, growing up during a time when the country was changing rapidly. Japan had become a rising power in Asia, and military service was seen as both an honor and a duty. Koga grew up in a society that valued discipline, loyalty, and national pride. He was serious, dedicated, and focused, qualities that made him a candidate for aviation training when he reached adulthood. As a young man, he entered the Imperial Japanese Navy's flight program, one of the most demanding military aviation schools in the world. Trainees spent long hours studying engineering, navigation, and aerial tactics. They drilled constantly, pushing their bodies to handle high speeds and tight turns. Over time, Koga proved himself as a capable pilot. He trained on the Mitsubishi A6M-0, a fighter aircraft that quickly became one of Japan's most important symbols of power. The Zero was fast, agile, and deadly. It could outturn nearly any American plane in the early years of the war. When pilots talked about it, they spoke with a mix of fear and respect. Stories spread of Zeros flying circles around American fighters, climbing rapidly and striking with precision. It had become a legend in the sky. And Koga, still young and looking forward to serving his country, became one of the men chosen to fly it. By the spring of 1942, he had been deployed to the Aleutian Islands campaign. The Japanese military believed that by attacking the Aleutians, they could distract American forces from the larger, more important battle taking place at Midway. The islands were cold, foggy, and often covered in clouds. Mountains rose sharply from the sea, and strong winds made flying a constant challenge. But Koga and his fellow pilots carried out orders with discipline. On June 4th, the same day Japan lost 4 carriers at Midway, Koga's unit launched another attack on the remote island of Dutch Harbor in Alaska. The sky was cloudy and the winds sharp, but the pilots pressed forward. Anti-aircraft guns from below fired toward them, filling the air with bursts of black smoke. During the attack, Koga Zero was hit by ground fire. A bullet tore through his plane, damaging a vital part of the engine. Smoke began pouring out. The aircraft lost power. Koga radioed to his squadron, explaining that he was going down. His commander instructed him to make a water landing in nearby Akutan Island, where a submarine rescue team was supposed to wait. The plan was simple in theory: glide down, land on the water, and wait to be rescued. But Koga did not know something crucial. The waters surrounding Akutan were not open ocean, they were marshland. What looked calm and flat from above was actually soft, hidden ground. As his Zero descended, he aimed for what he believed was smooth water. The wheels of the plane touched the surface, but almost instantly caught in the soft marsh. The aircraft flipped forward, its nose striking hard. The impact was violent. The tail lifted into the air. The propeller bent. The Zero rolled onto its back, trapping Koga inside. His 2 squad mates circled overhead, unable to land and unable to help. They watched in silence, knowing he had not survived.
They left quickly, determined not to let the Americans find the body or the plane. At the time, Japanese pilots were ordered to ensure their aircraft never fell into enemy hands. But they did not destroy the Zero. Believing it had sunk underwater, they left it untouched. Weeks passed. The winds of Akutan Island blew across the marsh. The wrecked Zero lay hidden in the tall grass, untouched, waiting for someone to find it. That moment came on July 10, 1942, when an American PBY Catalina patrol plane spotted something unusual during a routine flight. The crew saw the tail of an aircraft sticking out of the marsh below. They circled closer, surprised by the shape. It didn't look American. When they landed and approached the wreck on foot, they realized what they had found: a perfectly intact Japanese Zero. For a moment, the discovery didn't seem real. American forces had spent months trying to understand the Zero's strengths and weaknesses. Pilots had survived encounters with it, but no one had ever examined one closely. The aircraft was always destroyed in the air. The chance to study one, an entire aircraft, not just pieces, seemed impossible. But here it was. American recovery teams quickly arrived on the island. They carefully removed Koga's body and prepared the aircraft to be lifted out of the marsh. The Zero had damage, but remarkably, most of its structure remained whole. The teams worked for hours, wrapping cables around the fuselage, lifting it slowly, and loading it onto a transport ship. The aircraft was soon taken to Naval Air Station North Island in California, where engineers and test pilots waited eagerly. When the Zero arrived, it became the center of attention. Engineers inspected the engine, wings, controls, and internal structure. They studied the lightweight design, the thin metal skin, and the way the aircraft balanced speed with maneuverability. The discovery shocked them. The Zero was not built like American fighters. It was lighter, more flexible, and used design choices the U.S. had not considered. But its thin armor also revealed weaknesses. After repairs, American test pilots flew the Zero repeatedly. They performed tight turns, steep climbs, sharp dives, and simulated dogfights. Every flight revealed something important. The Zero had incredible agility at low speeds, but at high speeds it became difficult to control. It could turn beautifully in close combat, but it was vulnerable during quick dives. It lacked armor around the pilot and fuel tanks, making it easy to damage with a few precise hits. These weaknesses became the key to defeating it. As pilots tested the Akutan Zero, they created new strategies. They learned to avoid slow-turning fights and instead attack from above with speed. They developed tactics that used the strengths of American aircraft, heavier armor, and higher dive speeds to counter the Zero's advantages. These new techniques spread quickly throughout the Pacific theater. Many historians later said that understanding the captured Zero helped shift the balance of the air war. It gave American pilots knowledge they desperately needed at a time when Japan's air superiority was overwhelming. The information gained from Koga's aircraft played a role in victories at places like Guadalcanal, the Solomon Islands, and the Philippine Sea. While the Zero's discovery changed the course of the conflict, the story of Tadayoshi Koga faded quietly behind it. He had been 19 or 21, depending on different records, barely more than a boy when he died in the marsh. He never saw how his mission ended, never knew the impact his crashed plane would have. His family in Japan received only the news that he had been lost in action. They never knew the strange path his aircraft took after his crash. After the war ended in 1945, stories about the Akutan Zero continued to circulate among pilots and historians. The aircraft itself was stored for years, then unfortunately destroyed in a training accident. Only photographs and technical reports remained, along with the powerful memory of how one crash changed everything. Today, when people talk about the Akutan Zero, they often focus on the technical discoveries and the dramatic idea of a lost plane becoming a treasure. But behind that story is the quieter reality of a pilot raised in another world, following orders in a war he did not control, whose fate shaped events far beyond what he could imagine. And so when we return to that summer day in 1942, the mystery becomes clearer. How did one crash in a lonely marshland help unlock the secrets of Japan's most feared aircraft? The answer rests in the unlikely survival of the plane itself, a machine that stayed intact long enough to reveal everything inside it.